Some workers labored a full 12-hour day in the heat. Others worked only 1 hour. Yet the vineyard owner paid every single one of them exactly the same wage. When Jesus told this story, he wasn't teaching about fair labor practices. He was making a point about grace that still unsettles people today. The parable of the workers in the vineyard appears in Matthew chapter 20, told by Jesus in the context of a broader conversation about the kingdom of heaven, following his teaching that many that are first shall be last, and the last shall be first. That statement sets up exactly the tension this parable is designed to explore. In the story, a landowner goes out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard, agreeing with them on a wage of 1 penny or 1 denarius, a standard day's wage in the period, for a full day's work. He returns to the marketplace at 9 in the morning, finds others standing idle, and sends them to work as well, promising to pay whatsoever is right. He does this again at noon, again at 3 in the afternoon, and finally at 5 in the afternoon, just 1 hour before the workday would typically end, finding still more idle workers and sending them into the vineyard too. When evening comes, the landowner instructs his steward to pay the workers, beginning with those hired last and ending with those hired first. The workers who had only labored 1 hour receive a full day's wage, the same denarius originally promised to the first group. When it comes time to pay those who worked the entire day, they naturally expect more, having labored significantly longer under the heat of the day. Yet they receive exactly the same wage as everyone else. Understandably, they begin to complain. These last have wrought but 1 hour, and thou hast made them equal unto us, which have borne the burden and heat of the day. The landowner's response is the heart of the parable. Friend, I do thee no wrong. Didst not thou agree with me for a penny? Is it not lawful for me to do what I will with mine own? Is thine eye evil, because I am good? Jesus concludes the parable by repeating the statement that framed it. So the last shall be first, and the first last. To understand why this parable would have struck its original audience so forcefully, it helps to consider the labor practices of first-century Judea. Day laborers, often among the poorest members of society, gathered daily in marketplaces hoping to be hired, with no guarantee of steady work. A denarius represented a standard, reasonably fair day's wage sufficient to support a family for that day. The workers hired at the 11th hour, having stood idle most of the day, likely not by laziness but by lack of opportunity, would have faced real hardship without that wage, unable to provide for their household. That evening, if paid only a fraction of the full amount. This parable is best understood within its immediate literary context. Following Jesus' exchange with the rich young ruler and Peter's question, "We have forsaken all and followed thee. What shall we have therefore?" The parable directly addresses a concern about religious reward and status, a worry that those who have followed and served longer deserve and should expect greater recognition or compensation than those who come to faith later or serve for a shorter time. Jesus' parable directly confronts this instinct, insisting that God's grace isn't a wage carefully calibrated to match effort or duration of service, but a generous gift given according to the giver's own character rather than a strict comparative accounting of merit. The deeper meaning of this parable becomes clearer once we recognize that the unfairness the workers complain about isn't actually unfairness in the technical sense. The landowner didn't shortchange the full-day workers. He paid them exactly what was agreed upon. Their complaint arises not from being wronged, but from comparison, measuring their own treatment against the treatment of others rather than evaluating it on its own terms. This is a remarkably accurate picture of how resentment often functions, not from genuine injustice, but from an internal accounting system that measures our own worth relative to what others receive, rather than being satisfied with what we've genuinely been given. Applied to faith today, this parable challenges a subtle but common assumption that those who have followed God longer, served more visibly, or sacrificed more extensively somehow deserve a greater measure of God's favor than someone who comes to faith late in life or serves quietly and briefly by comparison. Jesus' parable insists otherwise. Grace, by its very definition, cannot be earned proportionally, and therefore cannot be distributed proportionally either. The thief on the cross, converted in his final hours, and a lifelong faithful believer both receive the same salvation, not because their efforts were equal, but because grace was never based on effort to begin with. This parable ultimately isn't really about labor economics, it's about the character of the giver. Is thine eye evil, because I am good? The landowner asks, directly naming the real issue, a resentment provoked not by injustice, but by another person's undeserved generosity. For anyone who has ever quietly measured their own spiritual effort against someone else's, wondering why a shorter, easier road of faith seems to receive the same grace as years of costly devotion. This parable offers both a gentle challenge and a profound comfort. The challenge is to release the instinct toward comparison.
The comfort is that the same extravagant, seemingly excessive generosity extended to the 11th hour worker is
available in exactly the same measure to anyone,